All right, here we go. Deep dive, Dr. Batman Galej seminar, Medical Yoga 2001 lecture. There's a lot of great stuff in here. This is a deep dive into his information. If you haven't read the book, You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty, I highly recommend it. Go to wherever you can get your books and get one. We've used his information for quite a few years, since 2010 approximately. And every day we do not miss adding sea salt to our water. And it's made a huge, wonderful improvement in our health and in our lifestyles. So this is going to be a breakdown of this full seminar, this lecture. It's over a couple hours. So if you want to hang on and nerd out like I love to do, you can hang out here or look at my channel for all these little pieces. I'm going to take them apart and they'll be on the channel later. But here we go.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Batman Galej. Dr. Batman Galej is a formally trained medical doctor who received his medical education and training at St. Mary's Hospital Medical School of London University. He has spent most of his scientific life researching the link between pain and disease and chronic dehydration. He discovered the healing powers of water 21 years ago when he was serving time as a political prisoner in an Iranian jail. And he successfully treated 3,000 fellow prisoners suffering from stress-induced peptic ulcer disease with the only medication he possessed, water. This is when he understood for the first time in medical history that the body indicates its water shortage by producing pain. Since his prison experience, he has focused his full time and attention on dehydration-produced health problems in the body. His discovery has helped hundreds of thousands of people suffering from a variety of pains and degenerative diseases regain their health. Dr. Batman Galej has presented his findings at several international and world conferences, and they have been published and peer-reviewed in a number of scientific journals. His findings are now available to the public in an easy-to-understand form in his 4 books, and his videotapes and audio tapes of his lectures plus combination programs. These health education materials have been peer and media reviewed and acclaimed both nationally and internationally. He is the author of 4 books, and they are Your Body's Many Cries for Water, How to Deal with Back Pain and Rheumatoid Joint Pain, Water, Prescription for a Healthier Pain-Free Life, and ABC of Asthma, Allergies, and Lupus. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Batman Galej.
Now, real quick, he's got other books. There's like several more books, actually. This is 2001. He passed in 2004, so he did publish more books. And by the way, they are getting harder and harder to find, so you want to look for them. But there is one that's very popular. You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty, at your local bookseller.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patel, it gives me a pleasure to be here and present to you once again my view or my discovery that chronic unintentional dehydration is the primary cause of pain and disease, including cancer, in the human body.
No, that's a heck of an opening statement if you think about it. That's huge. And after you get into his books and get into his information and apply it in your life, you'll see right away chronic unintentional dehydration is a real doozy.
As you know, I discovered this pain-relieving property of water in a stressful environment, in a human laboratory, stress laboratory called Evin Prison, where people were involved, not animals or rats. They had tongues, they could speak, and they could indicate their relief, they could give out their symptoms, and one could evaluate the impact of water on their health and well-being Evin Prison will probably be remembered throughout future history that we are going to make out of that event. A significant turning point in the life of mankind. Not because the authorities there killed a lot of people, but because they produced a stressful environment where the human body could reveal its stress-induced health problems, and water could reveal its magical curative properties in stress-induced health problems. We are better off as a result of what they did because of this discovery than anything that was done in research of medicine for the past 100 years. Because since 100 years ago, when we in medicine, my predecessors, started looking at the science of medicine, the question was asked, when is the body thirsty? A man by the name of Maurice Schiff, a Frenchman, said that thirst is a general sensation, and tried to stress this issue that we should look at dehydration through different perspectives in the body. Then there came a doctor by the name of Walter Bradford Cannon, an Englishman. He said, no, thirst is indicated by a dry mouth. When the mouth is dry, the body is thirsty.
And when have you actually ever considered the idea of when are you thirsty, or what does thirst mean? Has it ever even been an idea to you, except for when you're a kid playing and you're getting hot and you're thirsty and you go to the hose, turn on the garden hose, and you feed yourself a bunch of water? That's pretty, besides the idea of electrolytes with companies like Gatorade, etc., you really never have an idea of it until you see the marketing of electrolyte drinks, which are mostly sugar anyway. But it's that marketing that wakes you up to that idea. And that's how I was introduced to Gatorade, for instance, growing up. But the idea here is that you never really think about thirst. And he's going to get into this, but when you drink other drinks like coffee and tea and things like that, or alcohol, you actually create more dehydration. But it's going to come in this lecture. But it's funny to think we've never think about thirst. And somebody who said that it's only when you have a dry mouth is your body telling you you need water to hydrate. It's much more than that. He's going to explain now.
So we should drink water when we have a dry mouth. He was a very influential person, and the scientific community and the medical community bought into this false statement. And 100 years of money and time has been spent chasing this false assumption. And when we should have 100 years ago learned more about impact of dehydration in the human body, we wasted 100 years, and today at the dawn of the 21st century, we are beginning to understand that the dehydration manifests itself in as many ways as we in medicine have invented disease conditions. We in medicine, not knowing that dehydration becomes symptom producing and lack of water in the body is pathology producing, we have labeled states of dehydration, complications of dehydration, as disease conditions, and most often diseases of unknown etiology, in other words, cause unknown.
Think about that. He just he just dropped a bomb. He's saying that as many symptoms that you have from the cause of dehydration is as many as the conditions named by pathology. He's saying quite a big piece there. He's saying literally that the dehydration is the major cause of illness. So he's going to break it down, but that is a huge bomb in just the intro. He comes out swinging hard here.
When the body has been calling for water, it has become a fixed tradition to give it medication, to give it toxic chemicals without trying to stress this aspect of the flaw in our thinking. I would like to get into the lecture and explain how dehydration is the cause of disease in the human body. As our famous thinker of the time said, in order to solve problems, we need to up the level of thinking from the level of thought that created those problems. That is why we need to establish a paradigm shift in our mind and forget a lot of information that we were fed and we were forced to memorize in health matters and in science of medicine. 20th century medicine is based on 4 false assumptions. The entire monument of medicine, including this beautiful structure of Jefferson University Hospital Medical School, is based on 4 false assumptions. Dry mouth is the only true indicator of thirst, which it is not. In order to be able to chew and swallow food, which is a primary function for the body, we produce ample saliva even though the rest of the body may be dehydrated. So dry mouth is not a sign of dehydration. And as I will explain, people who've just eaten a heavy meal and within half an hour they start getting heartburn, they were able to swallow that food even though they were thirsty. The second false assumption is that water has no direct metabolic impact. It has no direct chemical effect. And the body is regulated by the solutes, by the elements that it dissolves in itself in the human body. In fact, we thought that we've taken the science of chemistry and rammed it into the human body when we discovered that the human body is made up of the similar elements that we tested in discipline of chemistry. We assumed automatically, as we did in chemistry, that water has no role. It's substance A and substance B that are principal agents in any chemical reaction. But water has no direct role in itself, which is a wrong assumption. The third false assumption is that water regulatory mechanisms of the body are efficient throughout the lifespan of a person. We begin to lose our perception of thirst as we grow older, and we allow dehydration to settle in our body. So this is another false assumption.
Now that one is very, you got to pay attention to that because you're only going in one direction on the timeline. You're not going into a direction where your sense of thirst or dehydration increases, it actually decreases. He'll show a graph on that. But that means the habit of drinking water is very, very important. And he'll get into it in this video on how much and et cetera. But that's something to consider.
Fourth false assumption is that all fluids can replace the water needs of the body, which is wrong. Water is water. Whatever is a fluid is not necessarily acting in the body in the same capacity as water. For example, milk is not water. It is food. Caffeine in beverages has its own agenda in the human body.
Milk is a food. And what's funny about drinking milk, and he'll talk about caffeine too, which is good timing, is both of them skew your sense or your capacity to feel thirsty. If you drink coffee, he's going to explain it actually dehydrates the body here, but you actually don't feel thirsty for water anymore. And meanwhile, the coffee itself is dehydrating you. But milk especially, it causes a reaction where you just do not feel thirsty. It's a food that's causing that, not a water or a hydrating liquid.
It dehydrates the body. Its
Caffeine.
effect on the brain and kidneys results in a lot of production of urine. It's going to flush more water out of the out of the body than there is water in the beverage. So when you drink a cup of coffee and it's 200 cc's, your body will begin to lose at least 230, 250, depending on how dehydrated you are and how your body is trying to conserve its water content. But caffeine, the sum total of it is that it dehydrates the body. Caffeine does something else, which is
Real quick, that number is about 25%, 200 cc's, and he mentions 25 to 50 cc's addition. I've used the 1.5 as my rule. So if I'm drinking a busy water, which he'll describe that, I think maybe in this lecture, or maybe he did it elsewhere, but busy water is a water that's busy with something else in it, meaning, let's say you make a juice or you make into a water, you have an alcoholic drink, let's say, or the ice cubes and soda water's in there, but a little bit of, let's say, vodka. That's actually busy water. That's not hydrating water. That's water that's going to be dehydrating you. So if you have 8 ounces of coffee, like he's describing here, you're going to be looking to having at least 10 to 12 more ounces of water to make up for the coffee you drink. And that is a deficit from your actual daily amount of water you should have based on your body weight, which you'll get into and break down. So you got to look at these dehydrating effects and how they impact your body's hydration. So unintentional chronic dehydration is the subject here. And it's not realizing that what you're drinking is not hydrating you in the least. Or someone recently told me beer has water in it. And I just had to laugh. But here he's going to continue here.
absolutely detrimental to the health of any living matter. And that is that it inhibits the enzyme phosphodiesterase,
Talking about caffeine.
which is essential in memory making. Dr. Patel just now was telling me that he was the one of the original discoverers of phosphodiesterase activity. And well, Dr. Patel, caffeine inhibits that enzyme activity. It's been discovered in fruit flies that the fruit flies totally forget their ability to fly off. The art of camouflage is lost, and they become easy prey to whatever is about to eat them. In fact, coffee plant is using caffeine as a chemical warfare, because once any predator would eat the coffee bean, which is supposed to generate the next species of the coffee plant in the soil, it's enzymes that will allow it to remember when to camouflage, when to be alert, to be responsive and reactive and quick and agile. That ability will go, and that critter or whatever eats it will become prey to its own predator. And that is how the coffee plant defends itself or its next generation species. Now we take this seed, bean, extract its caffeine, concentrate it, and give it to our people in the form of coffee and strongly brewed coffee, and 1 cup of Starbucks coffee contains 180 milligrams of this poisonous material. And as you can see in the society, Starbucks coffee shops are mushrooming all over the place, and you can see 10 years from now how stupid we will become by following this fashion of sitting at the counter of Starbucks or any coffee shop. I'm not zeroing on Starbucks, but they make the strongest coffee, so they claim anyway. So this is a problem in our society that people don't realize. Caffeine is a stupefying element. It is designed to do that. Now we give this caffeine to our children, rate of consumption of caffeine-containing beverages has shot up. It is now 64 gallons per person per year. And children as young as 1.5 to 2 years are given sodas. Older people in hospitals, instead of water, are given sodas. So you can imagine how our society is suffering because we don't understand the difference between fluids and water.
Now, listen to what he just said about caffeine. That is really, I mean, you could hear it for yourself, but the truth is, if it's stunting your memory and if it's causing you to act like a docile cow, it is really, and has as much effect as potentially fluoride. It's that dangerous of a drug. It's the most used drug in the world, caffeine. So understand what he just said. Listen to it again if you must. Rewind it. It is, when I first saw this, my wife and I decided to quit coffee. Within one day, we didn't crave it anymore. It's and or caffeine. We really don't do caffeine whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. But consider what he said about caffeine. That's caffeine. That's not just coffee. That's wherever caffeine resides, whether it's added to a soda or it's in tea as well. Here we go.
Now, on top of caffeine, we are now producing diet sodas, which contain this substance called aspartame as artificial sweetener, with the false assumption that anything that doesn't have energy and is sweet is okay, because the body is only storing energy that it gets in the form of sugar when we drink these beverages. Well, the false assumption is that we are not fooling the body, we are fooling our pockets and our health and our understanding of the human body. Because the human brain is a magnificent computer. It calculates and computes the intensity of sweetness, and to the nearest energy unit, it calculates the extent of energy that is arrived by the sweetness of the element that you swallowed. And it's been shown that up to 90 minutes after taking artificial sweetener, when the sugar or the energy that was promised is nowhere to be found, there is a panic in the body, physiological panic by the brain and the liver, and the person is compelled to go and eat and make good the promise of energy that was given to the body by the sweetness or the intensity of the sweetness. It's been shown that people go and eat heavily after taking artificial sweetener. So all these people who carry this can of soda with them in order to not put on weight, they're actually doing the reverse. They are adding weight to their body. Maybe that can of soda didn't have the sugar, but the food that they will eat within 90 minutes will have ample supply of fat-making elements in it.
So think about that. If you're having a Diet Coke, what a grand marketing scheme, and you order your meal with a Diet Coke, it's a big meal with a Diet Coke. The Diet Coke is tricking you into thinking that there's energy coming, and in fact, there isn't. Then you overeat the meal you ordered, which also typically, if this is a drive-through meal, for instance, or a fast food meal, it typically means that there's going to be 0 calories in there. I mean, there's going to be, 0 nutrition. There's going to be not valuable whole food nutrition, which is the difference here. So consider what he just said there too. Oh my gosh. That's aspartame, that's false sweeteners, that's sugar-free sweeteners of any kind.
Artificial sweetener, aspartame, divides into aspartate, which is a directly neuroactive amino acid. It doesn't have to be converted to any other element. Tryptophan has to be converted to serotonin and the other elements. Tyrosine has to be converted to adrenaline, noradrenaline, but aspartate doesn't have to be converted to anything. It's directly active on the reproductive centers of the brain. So we become vulnerable as a result of taking this active element by giving false starts to the reproductive system in the body. Aspartame has been recognized to give seizures. I presume it is the impact of aspartate amino acid directly on the brain. In the gut, aspartame divides into aspartate and phenylalanine, but 10% of the byproduct of metabolism in the gut is methyl alcohol and formaldehyde. So the more people drink artificial sweeteners, the more they are vulnerable to the toxicity of formaldehyde and methyl alcohol. And it has been now recognized that this element is responsible for a lot of retinal damage and visual impairment. So artificial sweetener is directly involved in eye problems. And the next one is that a lot of people who take this material become oversensitive to sense of smell. These are only highlights of the impact of this artificial sweetener. Unfortunately, this element is used in over 5,000 recipes, and we are causing a hell of a lot of damage to our body by taking this artificial sweetener. As a result of these false assumptions, we have created modern voodoo medicine of the 20th century.
And how often do you go to a restaurant and not see aspartate, aspartame, or these types of sweeteners you just mentioned on the table at the ready, or any coffee shop, for instance, or any place you're going to buy something to add to your drink? But the restaurant table is the most common, or breakfast cafe type place. That poison is sitting right there on the counter, ready for you to ingest. It's just wild.
We use biohazardous chemicals to treat dehydration of the human body. No wonder that recently there were articles, you've all seen them, that these prescription medications, even though if taken according to the instructions of the physician, make more than 2 million people sicker and kill a few 100,000 people every year. That is according to prescription, not how many mistakes are made in using prescription medication. We've produced a cost-intensive and cost-escalating sick care system because the system can only survive and thrive if people are sick. If they're well, if they're healthy, there is no sick care system. It'll be a health care system. Prevention will become a part of the program, not treatment. I can assure you that if we change the paradigm and I understand dehydration as the origin of pain and disease, we can reduce the healthcare cost of this society by no less than 60% in a matter of 10, 15 years, and have a much healthier nation, clearer thinking, more elevated in our thoughts and behavior. This is my understanding, and that's what I'm mostly talking, and my writing is addressing this issue. And I've just come back from another book tour where I traveled 14 cities. I went before television and radio and talked my head off, but no one would listen. So now, let us see what are the physiological effects of water in the body. Water has two main effects in the body. It has a life-giving effect. In other words, It doesn't perpetuate life, but it gives life. So water is vital for creation of life. Water manufactures hydroelectricity. When it rushes through the cell membrane, it turns cation pumps. It's the element that turns the pumps and does molecular exchange at the cell membrane. Water is behind that. It manufactures the energy for that function. It manufactures energy for neurotransmission through the nerve pathways.
What he's talking about there is actual creation of energy. It's that interchange between each cell. There's a creation, a spark of energy created. For instance, when hydration happens, when the cell is opening and closing and allowing potassium and sodium to go in and out of that cell, that cation pump he's talking about is the creation of actual energy. It's why during athletics you want to drink more, because you want to create more energy. Your body's telling you through your thirst, drink some more, hopefully electrolytes in your water. That way you can create more energy to complete the task you're involved with, whatever that may be. It's a very, very interesting piece of information. A lot of his information in this lecture is just, it seems like it's just cruising along nice and smooth, but it's very deep and it's very focused information. And at this point, he had already spent 20 years. 2001, he started researching in 1980 when he got out of Evin prison. I think he was out in 80 or 81. He spent the next 20 years literally focusing on dehydration and its effects on the body. And that's what he's on about here in this lecture, is his past 20 years of that.
It's a process of hydrolysis is an energizing element, an energizing effect. The food that you eat has absolutely no energy value whatsoever unless there is water there to break it down, hydrolyze it, and energize it to be absorbed. I will show you a slide of that later. Then water.
Think about that, what he just said. The food has no energy producing value until water is involved in the digestion. So when you're eating and you have stomach acid, your body is trying its best to digest that food and deal with it in its way, but the body has to have water in it, and its blood especially, to deal with the digestion process. He actually does not recommend drinking water while eating, because that's more of an indigestion causing effect versus the body's natural stomach acid to do its job. But water in general involved with the food to then create energy is a different point, but it's a very, very profound point. Water is what creates the energy with the food. Food doesn't use the water creates the energy with the food. Very fascinating point here.
Is the bonding material, it's the adhesive that binds the elements together and maintains the integrity of the cell membrane, so that whatever goes inside the cell and whatever is going outside of the cell, it doesn't interfere with the functions of the cell. And things will not spill out of the cell unnecessarily because there is an integrated cell membrane. Water is responsible for that. Now, this is research done by Philippa M. Wiggin. The source of energy for cation transport, or ATP synthesis, this is energy manufacturing mechanism, lies in increase in chemical potentials with increasing hydration of small cations and polyphosphate anions in the highly structured interfacial aqueous phase of the two phosphorylated intermediates. In other words, water is responsible for bringing about ATP synthesis. Water is the source of energy.
Boom.
Good, I'm glad.
Boom.
Who was it?
Water is the source of energy. Boom. That is just that's just a you really have to sit with that and understand what's going on there, and it you know, it brings you back to so many. Like look at children when they get around a swimming pool. I mean, if you can't see the immediate love for water or to the beach, it's just an incredible, just it's just blind faith. They just dive in, jump in, play. It's an infinite play. Children are the best, best way to view what is true in the world because they are so honest. And once they see a body of water, they just jump in, no matter how cold it is. Even it's just a really an interesting magnetic pull towards water when we're young, and there's a reason why, and it's very valuable. And what he's talking about here is just more proof of that.
Knew that? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, also, water produces high heat of activation at the cell membrane. This is a very important information. Heat is a source of energy. We all know that, okay? The body has learned to use this heat generated by water when it rushes through the cell membrane and trap and bond or bind calcium molecules together. As you know, when you heat water, the calcium in the water furs on the side of the kettle. This is the property of calcium. When it sees heat, it immediately grabs its brother, another calcium molecule, and they hug each other. They unite and they bind. The body uses that heat in order to bind calcium atoms together. Because later on, the body also knows how to separate these brothers, calcium molecules, apart and release the ATP energy that is stored in the calcium bondage. So with this information, you all know now that your bones are primary reservoirs of energy. Dehydration will unlock this energy and release the calcium, and gradually the bone will begin to lose density. That's how osteoporosis begins. Okay?
Okay, just listen to what he said. Oh my gosh. Hydration creates energy because of what he described with the cation pumps. Dehydration, and what happens when you're hydrated, your calcium bonds together and then stores as energy inside of your bone and creates density, which is strength in a strong body, a resistant body to falling, or you fall off your bike or skateboard or whatever. When you're unintentionally chronically dehydrated, your body is using the calcium from its storage area and creating energy with it. That means it's giving up bone density to create energy because you're not hydrating to create energy. Very simple. And it's also what is the beginning of osteoporosis, I believe you just mentioned, which is a plague. And it's just, this comes down to such a simple solution. He spent 20 years on this research, and he's put it together, and it's in so many books. And he even has a 6-cassette course, I think 6 or 8 cassettes audio course. But look for his material. It's very, very valuable. And just these huge bombs he's dropping in here are profound if you really consider what he's saying. And I'm trying to coach this video because it needs to be broken down, because he's a very intelligent doctor, and a lot of his terminology is not in lay terms, and I don't understand his terminology, but I understand it after watching this like 100 times and trying to apply it in my life and understanding it. But just listening to him again in this lecture, I can help guide the understanding, because it is so profound. It's so worth gold here.
This is a very important piece of information, that dehydration is background to release of energy from calcium bondage, initially at the endoplasmic reticulum inside the cells, and subsequently gradually from the bone structure. Now, you all have heard of ATP. Magnesium ATP is the element that needs to be broken down for its energy to be utilized. Unless there is water available to hydrolyze it, that magnesium ATP has no energy value, because its energy content is only 600 kilojoule moles of energy. This is a unit of energy. But when it's hydrolyzed, it becomes almost 6,000 units of energy. So a tenfold increase in energy because of hydrolysis. And this guy here, hydrogen ion, which has 1,168 kilojoule moles of energy in each reaction, is there to be tapped into. It's available straight away. Now, the next one is water is the adhesive material. This is a cell membrane. This is a well-hydrated cell membrane. This is a dehydrated cell membrane. I designed this slide in order to explain the difference. Water, in going through this unit here, binds the top of the tuning fork, because this is an element that is a hydrophilic cap and a hydrophobic bitail. There are two, each unit has got two tails. Water binds these together. That's how stickiness of ice comes into binding the cell membrane together. But immediately, once it gets into the main waterway, the bilayer membrane, it becomes again another structure of water. And in the process, these hydrophobic elements begin to repel water, and they create a wave, sort of a thing. And in this waterway, in this moat area between the two layers, is where all the chemical reactions in the cell occur. When something comes into the cell, an enzyme, it has to meet its substrate, its friend in arms, in order to perform a chemical reaction. It seeks it in this area. And these hydrophobic tuning fork vibrators, which cause stirring, will help it along in order to move and perform the chemical reaction more efficiently. Another important element is that in dehydration, the feedback mechanism, which depends on this activity, is shut down. So part of the process that occurs in dehydration is that the body, once it gets engaged in a chemical activity or a stream of activity or a cascade of chemical reactions, it gets stuck on there unless there is water to hydrate the bilayer membrane and allow the feedback mechanism to shut the chemical reaction off. This is something that's very important for control of all hormones and physiological activity that depend on feedback mechanism. Water is vital for that function. Now, when there isn't water available, something still has to stick these things together. That's where cholesterol comes in. Traditionally, cholesterol is a clay-like material that sticks elements together. The human body, or any living matter, including bacteria that don't have nucleus, produce lipids, cholesterol, to bind things together. And when bacteria go into inactivity and are preserved for years, that is how they've done it. They completely shut themselves off. And this moat-like area also gets shut off because the elements go into one another and prevent any float laterally, sideways, so that reactions don't take place. Now medical science is stuck.
Real quick there, he said cholesterol comes in to save the day, basically, when water's not available. So that's another positive form, or I'm sorry, positive use of cholesterol. Cholesterol has many positive uses in the body, and the body would not make it if it wasn't absolutely necessary. So the idea being that you are supposed to have low cholesterol or no cholesterol is completely unthinkable. It's just a very important thing that your body uses in all kinds of ways. Your body uses cholesterol to make vitamin D when you're exposed to the sun. I mean, just think about that. You need vitamin D. Let's continue.
On this aspect of water, water has life-supporting functions. They completely forgot about life-giving functions of water. We concentrated on water as a solvent, as a packing material, and a means of transport. That's why science and medicine is incomplete. And on incomplete information, we have built a tradition that takes charge of people's health and not do well by them. The brain is 85% water, and the rest of the body is 75% water. In fact, I have a reference here by John G. Watterson, who is a physical chemist, and he's produced the role of water in cell architecture and explained that a brain is 85% water. And he's explained how water gels things together, how it becomes sticky like ice. Water, when it's compressed to a thinness or thickness of 2.5 angstrom units, it becomes sticky like ice. Brain is 85% water, and it's 1/50th of the total body weight, and the body is 75% water, but the brain takes priority, and that's why it allocates to itself 20% of the circulation. So brain has priority over water distribution because it has to perform physiological functions that are water dependent. It cannot endure dehydration, and that's why the brain becomes a reactive force in the body against the rest of the tissues in order to bring to itself the primary raw materials at the expense of all the other tissues of the body.
Now
The human body is packed.
Think about that for a second. If the brain is using 20% of the body's circulation to support itself because it is made of 85% water and it needs water to function, what it does is it prioritizes itself as a function of itself. What happens in the body, here's an example. I have to say this first. When a person is dehydrated and they urinate and their urine is orange or deep, dark yellow, the body is giving up tissue into the bloodstream. It's actually sacrificing tissue to give up water for the body, for the brain. And then, of course, I'm sure the heart behind that, but the brain's first and foremost the priority. When the urine is that dark of a color, it's the body using tissue to hydrate itself. It's sacrificing tissue. That's the way to put it. That orange color or dark yellow color is the sacrifice of tissue to create a hydro environment so the brain can have its function. The brain needs its function and will prioritize itself over the tissue of the body. This is profound. And this is what happens when the body's just doing its best. It's with what it has. So this is what's happening when you're unintentionally chronically dehydrated. And it's through the education of hydration that is the actual problem. But you don't know you're thirsty until your mouth is dry. That's not the significator. It's understanding how much you should drink a day based on your body weight, etc. He's going to break that down. If he doesn't, I will add it in the video. But I'm sure he does. He has so many videos that I've seen, but this is one of the greatest ones. But let's just keep moving here.
With probably, I haven't counted them myself, but I'm told there are 100 trillion cells in the body, approximately. And each cell is a water-dependent species packed together within our skin. And we should consider our skin as the capsule of a water-dependent satellite or a space capsule of these water-dwelling species that have come on land. Each cell has a lot of receptors, whereas in our society we have these dishes that we use electromagnetic wavelengths in order to communicate between people and countries and societies. All living matter that live in water have the same sort of receptor dishes, but they use chemical messengers, not electromagnetic, because their medium is not air, it is water. Everything has to flow and reach the destination by swimming to its receptor. And that's why each cell has got a bilayer membrane, because it has to protect itself from entry of anything that is not directly impacting the physiology inside the cell. So each cell has got selective receptors, and these receptors are only sensitive to elements that concern the activity of that cell. There are basically two oceans of water in the body. There is one ocean of water inside the cells of the body, and then there is an ocean outside of the cells of the body. The water that we drink goes directly, replenishes the ocean inside. The salt that we take maintains some of the water outside of the cells and balances these two oceans. These two oceans have to be in balance.
Now listen to that. The water you drink goes inside of the cells. The salt you take with the water you drink, or the salt you take in your food, helps balance the water outside of the cells. There's a reason for that. He's going to get into it, but just remember that when you're drinking water that's not busy water, meaning water that's plain and has electrolytes in it, like you've been seeing me do continuously throughout this video, that water is going to the ocean inside of my cells. But in addition, the fact that I have electrolytes in there, it's also balancing the water outside of my cells. That cell needs to have an ocean of balance outside and inside for it to do its job and create energy. He'll get into that.
At all times, just like the Atlantic and the Pacific, you can't let the Atlantic expand and the Pacific to dry up. The human body is just like that. You can't expand the content inside the cell of water and allow the water content outside of the cell to dry up. In fact, the reverse is true, because the physiology of the human body depends that the exterior water compartment expands and the interior water compartment in the cells begin to shrink. And this is where health problems occur, because when water is short inside the cells, the physiological functions of that cell don't occur as efficiently as they should.
That's dehydration. That causes the inside of the cells to shrink versus the outside of the cells, which is expanding. Let's say you have salt in your food, but you're not drinking water. Whatever tissue that has been sacrificed to maintain what little ocean it can outside of the cells, the tissue sacrifice, like we talked about with the calcium and the tissue just now, is going to maintain that ocean outside, but the inside of the cell is going to shrink. And this is where the problems start to happen.
So that's why dehydration that settles in one or another area of the body becomes symptom producing because of malfunction of the physiology inside the cells. There are three major ways of delivering water into the cells. One is by diffusion at the rate of 10 to the power of minus 3 centimeters per second. The water goes through the cell membrane, gets into this moat area, and then eventually inside. When there isn't enough water in the body, because the human body has a lot of water. Let us get something clear. We have a lot of water in our body. We are talking about free water to perform new functions. Whatever water that we have in the body is already engaged in a physiological function. You cannot expect water to abandon its physiological function in the brain and go into the gut in order to dissolve or break down food.
Which was the point I was just making. The free water is the water you consume, which doesn't have a job yet. Busy water is, not busy water, but water that's already in a responsible place in your body is not just going to sacrifice itself, like he's saying right now, from the brain to go to the gut to digest food. It's the free water that allows your body to then put it into where it's needed most. When you're chronically dehydrated, unintentionally dehydrated, then you're not allowing your body to have water at all. And you're actually slipping backwards by drinking only coffee and only, let's say, alcoholic drinks, for instance. You're sliding backwards slowly, and your body's constantly trying to fill in the gap by sacrificing tissue. That tissue can come from the calcium in your bones, and can also come from other cells that are just trying to give up to survive. Because water is everywhere in your body. Your brain's 85%, and I forget the percentage he said of the body, which is that 70 or 80. It's mostly water. So it's your body's full of water, and it's trying its best to sacrifice the least most to survive. To feed the brain first, and then other organs later.
Or vice versa. We need fresh water for fresh activity. If you want to eat food, you need fresh water. You can't rely on water that is in the body. That water is already engaged. And if you drank a glass of water 2 hours ago, that water is probably already sitting in your bladder and it's not in your circulation. So if you're going to eat, you better give the body some more water before you eat. Now, the other way...
And typically, if you're going to, the idea here is from his other information, either through his books or videos that I've seen, you want to drink a glass of water, 10 ounces, whatever, half an hour before your meal. So half an hour ahead of time, that gives that water a chance to get into places and help spike your stomach acid. Your stomach acid is going to be what your meal is going to rely on when you get down to sitting and eating. So you want to have that water about half an hour, 20, 30 minutes ahead of eating your meal.
Of delivering water is by reverse osmosis, because the body tends to draw water out of the peripheral cells and bring it into the circulation and filter and inject that water into vital cells. And that's called reverse osmosis. And then you've got osmotic movement of water, because once insulin opens the gates and sugar goes in, and the mechanism is such that the other amino acids will go in, and they will carry some water with them into the cell to perform the functions that are required. And as we grow older, we lose our perception of thirst, and the body becomes dehydrated.
Oh man, this is a heck of a chart here. I mean, look at this. I pause it because it might disappear. I forget how quick it goes away, but this really shows you right here: water intake and loss of thirst sensation, life birth right at the beginning on the left, and then age 10 to 25 is the purple area. It looks like, and then it shows you as you age 40, 60, 80. That the downward angle there in the blue is showing you your loss of thirst sensation. So drinking things like your lifestyle impact, tea, coffee, sodas, alcohol, is taking that down, because those are called dehydrants. Those are literally dehydrating you as you drink them, to the order of 1.25 to 1.5. So every ounce considered an ounce and a half of dehydrant. So you have to make up that ounce and a half, and typically you don't. And so that mixed with the loss of thirst sensation, you can easily see why, with everything we've talked about so far, osteoporosis is on the rise, dementia is on the rise. These are things that the body is just trying its best to survive in a dehydrated state. And these symptoms, osteo and dementia, etc., and you can look at his other books, he describes it too. The symptoms are the body's histamines. They're called histamines, are the body's ways of telling the brain, I need water. Those physical ailments are the body's way of saying, I need water. They're screaming it by giving you a symptom. Once you give the water and the electrolytes, then those symptoms go away. And he's going to get into that, hopefully in this video. Again, he has several videos out there, but this is such a good one.
And if we make the stupid assumption that any fluid is good enough as in place of water, then we dehydrate the body even further, and that is how in this area, diseases occur. This is a process of reverse osmosis. For example, brain cells, it's 85% water, needs water vitally because all its neurotransmission mechanisms depend on energy from water. Its flow mechanisms need water. So there is a substance, I call it a neurotransmitter, or some people call it a hormone, sits on its receptor and converts it into a shower head with tiny perforations of 2 angstrom units that only allow one water molecule to go through the holes, single file. No elements will go in, no other elements that are dissolved in the water that's in circulation. Only water will go through. Vasopressin also puts, as its name implies, it puts a pressure on the capillaries in the area and produces a constriction force to squirt water into the cell. When we become dehydrated, more and more we depend on this and the constrictive force. As a result, we shut down the capillary systems, and that is how hypertension begins, peripheral resistance because of dehydration and this method of water delivery. So when the body has to resort onto reverse osmosis as a means of delivering water into the cells, it has to up the pressure, the injection pressure more and more, and that's how we become susceptible to a rise in blood pressure. It has been shown scientifically that
that statement is a heck of one, the rise in blood pressures, because we're trying to push, the body's trying to push the water.
Between the ages of 20 and 70, the ratio of water content inside the cells to water volume outside of the cells changes drastically from 1.1 and becomes 0.8. Less water inside the cells than outside of the cells. The cells at the age of 70 are shrunken, small. At the age of 20, they are more juicy. They are more plum-like. Here, they're prune-like. The water has been sucked out because of dehydration that is settled in the body, and somebody had to sacrifice its water content, and that is what happens.
Now that right there should say a lot. I mean, it's, again, I know it's going to sound like a broken record, but it's unintentional chronic dehydration. So these things can be fixed if you adopt the habit of drinking your water. It's a habit. It's definitely not something you feel inclined to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be dehydrated and you wouldn't have these symptoms. But again, it's back to education. We've already made the point, but it's a habit of drinking the proper amount of water every day, and it becomes, you have to get used to using the restroom. You have to get used to, whatever you have to do. You have to carry water with you. You have to travel with it. You have to, figure out how you're going to maintain continuously having your water. When we travel, that's the first thing we take care of, right? When we land anywhere, we go get our big bottles. We buy them. We figure out the water, whether it's a hotel and how much water they can give us. And nowadays, they're much more liberal with water bottles. We don't like to use water bottles when we travel, but certain places we go, we buy the big. You go to like Whole Foods and buy the 5-gallon or 3-gallon jug and make our own water in a hotel room. We normally do that, but we'll continue to go on here.
Don't forget, we are a satellite species that is in space travel. If we don't recognize our thirst and satisfy it, the body assumes that it's going through a dry patch of space and is not replacing its water, is not able to replace its water content. This is a drastic change, and this is where disease occurs. Because don't forget, when we drink water, it goes inside the cells. Don't you remember that? So by not drinking water, we are producing this state, and that's why we are causing a disease state in the body. I don't expect you to read this, but let me explain it to you. When I researched water in cure of peptic ulcer disease, and after treating 3,000 or more cases, I realized that these people were thirsty, and we have labeled thirst as a disease condition. I needed to find out why. All of a sudden it occurred to me that the pharmaceutical industry insists on blocking the action of histamine in peptic ulcer disease. That's why they've got H2 blockers, and such as Tagamet and Zantac. Why are they doing this, I said. And I started researching. Immediately I discovered that histamine is the main neurotransmitter in charge of water regulation and drought management programs of the body. So whatever action histamine is taking in the body, it is to cope with drought. So whatever symptoms it's producing are symptoms of dehydration and drought. That was a breakthrough in my work, and that is what I presented at the anti-cancer conference in 1987. And I explained that dehydration is the origin of pain and disease, including cancer. And when I made that presentation, and they published it in this journal, I was invited by scientific secretariat of the Third Interscience World Conference on Inflammation to present this view of histamine at their conference in 1989. I went there, and this is what I produced, that histamine is a neurotransmitter in charge of water regulation in the body, and we should not treat dehydration with medications, but with water, because water is the best natural antihistamine there is, and salt is the best natural antihistamine. So whatever I'm explaining to you in this lecture has been presented at various conferences and international gatherings. There are three different...
Now he what he just said was he did present this to the medical community, and in large part, he was ignored, and I imagine that had a lot to do with the impact he was going to have with this information upon the pocketbooks of those who are paid by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I don't know that's all for fact. I assume, because that's typically what I've seen, how these things work. Follow the money trail. And if water is the simple solution, pun intended, to fix what ails you, and it doesn't cost hardly anything, that could have quite an impact.
Histamine-producing cells, basically, as a neurotransmitter, the brain cells, some aspects of the brain cells are producing histamine. Then we have the mast cells, and then we have basophils that circulate. Mast cells are basically stationary histamine-producing cells, and basophils are the ones that circulate in blood. But by the virtue of possessing histamine-producing properties, they're all to be considered as neurons, as brain cells or extensions of brain cells. So mast cells become brain cells locally, and it has been shown that also nerve grows towards them. So in other words, they're connected to a nervous system in the tissues. And then you've got the basophils that circulate. Water and salt are the best natural antihistamines. Not that we want to get rid of histamine, but we want to allay its anxiety that there is no water in the body, so that it doesn't overreact, because histamine can become very insistent. It is a ruthless neurotransmitter because survival depends on a very strict rationing system, and histamine exercises that strict rationing system in the body when it's dehydrated. Histamine is with us from minute one of life. This is a just fertilized ovum before it divides into two daughter cells in order to become two new cells that give life to a human body. This cell has got histamine-releasing properties. So histamine is a very important element in our lives from minute one of life. It regulates the cation exchange in the cell. It liberates energy for cation exchange. When water is not around, it brings circulation to the area in order for the cell to expand 75% of its volume in water before it can divide. Between the ages...
Again, oh my gosh. Histamine, which is what water and sea salt, for instance, helps the communication of. Histamine is a communication network that's been there since the moment we basically start. And it is involved with all the production of energy throughout our body, which he just described, continuously. And when it does not have water, it's not working well, and it's sacrificing tissue. When it does have water, it's putting these things to work in the different areas. But histamine is a communication network. Here you go.
Of minute 1 to 9 months, histamine regulates, and with growth hormone and mother's hormones, regulates the water intake of the cell, and of course placental hormones. And after childbirth, growth hormone and histamine, and at the age of 25 onwards, we lose growth hormone, but histamine is still active. We gradually lose growth hormone, and we lose our perception of thirst because of our lifestyle problems, and we gradually become dehydrated because there isn't a growth hormone there. But if we stimulate, if we take water on a regular basis and stimulate a tryptophan transport across the blood-brain barrier and manufacture serotonin, growth hormone is directly under the influence of serotonin. So growth hormone production will continue as long as we are hydrated. So what is the message of all this? It's persistent dehydration that causes pain and disease in the human body. Persistent unintentional dehydration reveals itself in as many ways as we in medicine have labeled as disease conditions. The new medical truth is you're not sick, you're thirsty. Don't treat thirst with medication. Now the question arises, if someone had just arrived and hadn't heard me talking, and or they were stuck on a question that's been bothering them for some time, how come water and salt act as medication in so many health problems? The answer is because they correct persistent dehydration inside all cells of the body.
Now, when he says salt there, like in that slide, it's a full spectrum salt, meaning sea salt, for instance. It's not table salt. So just make sure that that's a very, very important point.
In dehydration, by the way, these are slides that were permission was given to me to use by Elan Sun Star from Hawaii. They're magnificent slides of water. And this artist has focused on water for some time and produced a lot of good slides. And I've been given permission to use them in this capacity. Most important amino acids are used as antioxidants in dehydration. You've seen these field johns or the toilet on board the planes. When there isn't water, they use these chemicals to deodorize and sanitize the refuse that enters into the thing when there is no drainage system. Field johns the same. In the human body, when there isn't enough water to wash the toxic waste away and carry it away from the interior of the cells and exterior of environment of important cells, something has to neutralize this toxic waste. The human body has learned to waste some of its own elements. Tryptophan, tyrosine, methionines, cysteine, and histidine become depleted as a result of dehydration because some of these are used as antioxidants. They neutralize they take the brunt of the acidity and the chemical toxic, molecular toxic waste. Now, we come to...
That's a big piece, and that's what I mentioned earlier. The sacrificing that's happening during dehydration is profound. I mean, it goes across your whole body. It's just such a deep subject, but he's doing a really great job on explaining this. And I've only learned this from him. Everything I've studied has been mainly from him, that I've gotten the very, very high points.
Importance of salt, because we talked about water in the cell, inside the cells. Now, salt has to be there in order to expand the volume of water outside of the cells. And it has many functions. It is involved in nerve cell communication. Sodium-potassium pump is involved in transmission of messages throughout the body in the nerve pathways. It is vital for absorption of food. The sodium-potassium pump is vital for absorption of all the food elements. It clears lungs. It hydrates the lung tissue. It charge shields mucus, and mucus becomes watery and becomes much easier to get rid of.
Now think about that right there. It charge shields mucus means you have phlegm in your lungs, you have pleuritis, you have pneumonia. These situations are typically caused by dehydration and the lack of salt. And for some reason, we were taught not to eat salt at all, which is completely bewildering considering the blood plasma profile of minerals in your body are the same as the profile of minerals in the ocean. Dude. So, wow. I mean, that really means you need sea salt. You really need it. As he says here, salt is vital.
Prevents muscle cramps because it takes the acid out of the cells, muscle cells. Also because it expands the circulation to the muscles and the toxic waste can be washed away. So it is vital for cramps. It is vital for maintaining the structure of bone because when salt is there, the body manufactures hydroelectricity and doesn't need to tap into the calcium bondage in the bone structure. Not only that, but bone is a reservoir for salt. It is in fact the salt crystals, 27% of the reserves of the salt of the body is stored in the bones. It is salt crystal that gives bone its firmness and hardness. In other words, osteoporosis and osteoarthritis eventually is caused by salt deficiency as we come. Salt is vital for sleep. Anytime you can't sleep, if you drink a glass of water and put a tiny pinch of salt on your tongue, you will fall into a baby sleep for at least 4 hours without any problem. I had an experience, so that you don't think that this is a very recent thing. In 1963, I went on pilgrimage to Mecca. I was brought up as a Muslim, but I believe in all religions, so I'm faithful to all of them. Because I believe in God and they're all His teaching, they carry His teaching. Saudi Arabian government was reluctant to release the plane that had 180 people on board. They kept it on the tarmac in that hot environment for 4 hours. 3 hours into that delay, because don't forget we were there 18 days in the heat and we were all dehydrated as a result. 3 hours into this delay, all of a sudden I heard someone shrieking, "Oh my heart, oh my heart." And there was a doctor on board, called the stewardess and said that please tell them that there is a sick person, they should send an ambulance. I immediately realized instinctively what had happened. There was containers with lemonade. I went and got a whole lot of salt and filled a whole glass with lemonade and added a lot of salt to it, shook it and gave it to him to drink. And he drank it, and within 3 minutes there was no more pain. What had happened, because we were sitting still, the only part of his body that was moving was his chest cavity in breathing. He had had cramp of the intercostal muscles because of salt deficiency. We had sweated a lot of salt out of our bodies. And once I had replaced this water and salt in the form of lemonade, that cramp went away. So salt deficiency is a very significant um, differential diagnostic issue in a lot of heart problems. A lot of these all of a sudden pains may be produced by dehydration, as I have experienced. I treated a person with 3 glasses of water when his pain had begun at 1 o'clock in the afternoon after lunch. When I saw him, it was 11 o'clock. He was in real, almost semi-comatose state from pain. He wouldn't respond. I shook him. I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "My peptic ulcer disease is killing me." I said, "What have you done for it?" He said he had taken 3 tablets of Tagamet and a whole bottle of antacid, and nothing had worked. So when I gave him 2 glasses of water, within 10 minutes he started calming down. I gave him a 3rd glass of water. Within another 6 minutes, within 20 minutes, he was totally pain-free. So dehydration can mimic surgical complications or problems of surgical nature, because normally this person would have been rushed in America or in Britain. He would have been rushed to the hospital, and they would have opened him up to see what's happened. And of course, they wouldn't have found anything because he was only thirsty. Salt is vital in extracting acidity out of the cells. In cation exchange, what happens? Sodium goes into the cell and hydrogen ion comes out. This is a silent activity. Then potassium goes into the cell and sodium comes out. So this is a cation exchange mechanism that you need salt in order to extract excess acid out of the interior of the cells and reduce, or rather take the acidity out and make the internal environment of the cell alkaline. Brain cells perform this function by having a lot of salt in their environment.
Think about what he just said. You need salt for that function to happen, for the cell to go from alkaline to, excuse me, the word is already out of my brain, but he just said it. It's to balance out the cell to the point where it's healthy versus being in an alkaline state. I'm sorry, go to alkaline from acidic. It's the acidity that's the problem, because it's a lack of hydration. But when you have the salt and the water, then you allow the acidity to be pulled out of that cell with the minerals going back and forth across that cell membrane and the cell wall. So you need water and salt to live balanced. Without one, without the other, without one, you're not doing good. I'm sorry, with water only and no salt, that's one issue. And you can't live with just salt, so we can't even go there. So it's if when you have water without salt, without minerals at all, you're in a dilemma for sure. But when you have it with the minerals, now you're getting that cell to be balanced, where the activity can go in and out, pull the acidity out and put the alkaline in, which balances the cell. Fascinating information.
Because cerebrospinal fluid is no less than a very salty ocean of water around the brain. Salt is essential for balancing blood sugar. Osmotically, when there isn't enough salt, the design of the body is such that its sugar level goes up in order to osmotically draw water out of the cells and make it available for the brain, because the brain doesn't need insulin in order to metabolize the excess sugar. And water is essential.
If you just heard that, the sugar level rises. The body creates the environment to draw water in and around the ocean of the cells, to then draw water. When there's an imbalance of the ocean outside of the cell to the ocean inside of the cell, then one goes to the other. So that high sugar environment is what draws the water out, so the brain can have that water. Very amazing function how our body works. Just incredible.
For hydroelectric energy. Salt is vital for absorption of essential minerals. When we are short of salt, means we don't break salt down into sodium and chlorine or chloride in order to manufacture sodium bicarbonate, which is a acid neutralizer, and hydrochloric acid, which is poured in the stomach. Hydrochloric acid is vital for absorption of the essential minerals. Zinc, magnesium, manganese, selenium, copper, chromium, and molybdenum, in that order, depend on acidity inside the stomach in order to get absorbed. So, in other words, salt deficiency can directly cause mineral deficiency. That's why a lot of people in dehydration are both zinc deficient, magnesium deficient, and selenium deficient, and a lot of impotence is probably caused by this guy not being available as a result of salt deficiency.
Now think about that, what he just said. Salt deficiency is causing mineral deficiency. So you could be eating salad after salad and hoping to get your vital minerals out of that salad and the other ingredients you're putting together there. But when you're not having salt in your diet or in your water, which is again the easiest place to put it, and I haven't said it yet, but it is the easiest place to keep it in your diet, then your body doesn't have the ability for those minerals to go through a proper acid bath to then be absorbed. So the minerals go through digestion, but in a weakened, with no salt in the body, in the stomach acid is weakened to the point where it won't allow the mineral absorption through the acidic environment of the stomach acid. The lack of salt causes a problem there. So that's why you can be mineral deficient without salt, even though you're eating the minerals in the form of salads and other mineral, foods.
Water is vital. Salt and water are vital elements for integrity of the brain function. As you know, 85% water the brain is, and all transport systems in the nervous tissue are carried in microstreams. There is a better slide of this will come. So dehydration is responsible for loss of essential amino acids and minerals, which are ultimately the cause of a whole lot of neurological disorders and brain damage. This is a single nerve in a large bundle. It has microtubes. Microtubes are perforated cation pumps that are stuck together side by side. These microtubes act as drainage pipes in the cytoplasm that has got organized water. So it draws water and creates an area of lower viscosity, and the transporter protein moves on the microtubes that generates hydroelectric energy for transfer of this vesicle of products which have been manufactured in the nerve cell itself, but has to be carried all the way down to the extreme nerve endings. Some of these elements are on passage for months before they reach their destination. And yet this is called the fast axon transport system. That is how water is vital for nerve transmission. You need to have the raw materials in position to perform a function. In dehydration, you deplete the raw materials that are required, and that's why people tire much more easily when they are dehydrated. In dehydration and associated achlorhydria, zinc, magnesium, manganese, and selenium are the elements that become depleted. Multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and others strongly reflect some of these mineral and amino acid deficiencies. So dehydration and salt deficiency.
That's a heck of a list right there. I mean, pay attention to that. That was incredible.
Are primary elements that are required in order to prevent neurological disorders. If you want your parents, yourselves, not to suffer later on in life from Alzheimer's disease, remember, water and salt is probably the better medications for you, preventive medications, than anything you can imagine. And they're cheap, don't cost anything.
Yeah, I mean, listen to that right there. Boom. I mean, boom. If you don't want that dilemma in your life, You want to pay attention to the water, salt, food, exercise, which is what this video is actually called, which we're going to get into at the end of it. And I'm probably going to make separate videos on it, but it is simple. It is that simple: water, salt, food, exercise. He'll explain it, but the brain needs water. It needs salt. It isn't an option. It doesn't want those items. It does everything it can in its power to sacrifice tissue to get those items. So think about that.
Now, salt is vital for bladder control. How many of you know people who are truly incapacitated because they can't hold their urine? They always have to wear pads. Well, salt is probably the missing element, because a lot of people drink a lot of beverages that dehydrate the body and get rid of the salt. And salt is essential for smooth muscle to become strong. This is a lady whose letter is in my book, ABC of Asthma, Allergies, and Lupus. Her name is Dotley Reed. She is a poetess. She's a very intelligent person. She delivers spare parts, 8 hours sits in the car and moves from one service station to another, delivers spare parts. She always had to carry 3 changes of clothes with her because she knew that she would need them. She had no control over her bladder. She would leak. And she came across my information on salt and started increasing her salt intake. And within 3 or 4 days, she noticed a difference. Within 8 days, she was totally dry. And this is her quotation from the book. She says, "I have a weak bladder and had even taken spare clothing as I was sure they would be needed. I arrived with not a drop of anything on my clothing. I had talked myself off salt, a bad mistake." It's a bad, sad experience that 15 million people have that? I understand that there are this number of people who have this problem and bear it with a lot of grace, but unfortunately they are suffering. So salt is a vital element. We come to the gist of what I had experienced in the prison, because in prison we were all stressed and we didn't have activity, we were not able to move, we didn't have a proper environment of health. So I tried to find out what is the connection to dehydration. Then I realized that in stress, vasopressin is secreted, which I explained is a neurotransmitter or hormone that operates the reverse osmosis program. Then we produce endorphin, which allows us to endure hardship during our stress. Then we produce prolactin, because prolactin is the element that is needed by the body in the reproductive phase of life in order to keep reproductive organs functioning. And then we produce cortisone release factor, because cortisone release factor is essential for mobilization of raw materials from the interior of the body when it's not arriving as a result of water intake and absorption of food. Then we also produce renin-angiotensin activity, which regulates the blood volumes and the vascular system volumes, which is actually directly responsible for absorbing more salt or getting more salt and developing a salt appetite. As a result of my research and my understanding the relationship between histamine, hydration, histamine production to renin-angiotensin system activation, and vasopressin and prostaglandin production, define the following conditions as the primary indicators of or consequences of chronic dehydration. This is not a leap of faith, it's an actual fact that when you are dehydrated, those elements become secreted, and this relationship, because of our knowledge of medicine, have to be assumed to be produced by dehydration. Dehydration manifests itself in the body by 4 different ways. The perceptive feelings that everyone, the brain becomes aware of dehydration first and produces its own markers of dehydration, which we never understood. Then water rationing programs are the next indicators. And then we have crisis calls of the body for water and disease complications. These 4 stages of dehydration in the body are now understandable. We need to become more aware of them as we go along. And if we come across people who have these problems, we can tell them easily that they're not sick, they're just thirsty. Go and hydrate the body. Feeling tired is a sign of dehydration. When you haven't done a good day's work and you're tired, first thing in the morning you wake up, you're tired. You have no energy to get out of bed. You're dehydrated. Why? For 8 hours you've slept, you've respired water out of your body, because everybody loses about a quart of water through breathing. Water evaporates and leaves your body through the lungs.
Listen to that. 1 quart of water for breathing. That's every 24 hours. I'm assuming. I'm pretty sure that's what he said before. So that's 1 quart. That's just through respiration.
And you've perspired under the bedclothes, and you haven't drank enough water for 8 hours, but you've manufactured urine, which is sitting in your bladder. So you're truly dehydrated by the morning, and your brain cells, when they need energy of hydroelectric energy to be vibrant and alive, they don't have it.
That's one of the first things I do in the morning before my wife even wakes up. I'm up at 5 typically, and she's up at 7-ish. I'll typically have already 2 quarts of water down, pretty much typically every day. That water, and I've seen Barbara O'Neill's videos. She's telling the children that either her kids or some kids she's in care of, that they need to water their garden, and that means get the water in first before they get their breakfast. And it's a very, very important element. And as he's describing here, your brain needs that function of water and salt to get the motors going, and it knows when it doesn't have it. It's crazy.
So you get tired unnecessarily first thing in the morning or throughout the day when you're active, and it's not a high intensity activity, and yet you get tired. That's a sign of dehydration. Water is a better pick-me-up than anything you can imagine. Feeling flushed, again, the vascular system to the face stems from the same route as goes to the brain. So when vascular system in the brain is being opened up, nonetheless the vascular system to the face will also open up, because face is the extension of your brain. Your face is not just the nose, 2 eyes, and a mouth, and your 2 ears, but it's full of nerve endings. Your face is in fact a receptor dish that's connected to your brain, and it reads its environment constantly. And so it needs more circulation to be integrated with the brain activity. When there is dehydration and the brain recognizes that dehydration, it also brings more circulation to the face, because those are the extensions of its activity.
Now that's fascinating right there. That really means that the brain is, your face is your radar dish. It's telling you of danger, for instance. Is an animal coming to get me? Is a bear coming to attack me? You have these things to perceive your environment, and not just that, but all the nerves. Very fascinating point. And of course, when you're properly hydrated and salted, and I mean salted meaning with electrolytes in that water, that everything's functioning well. When you're not, then things are breaking down, and the brain's bringing more to bear because of that dehydration with its senses. Fascinating.
Being irritable again, I've explained these in the book, you can read those. Being anxious, being dejected, these are all consequences of not having enough energy for brain function. And depression is another sign of dehydration, because not only you become depressed by energy loss, but you also become depressed because you lose the amino acids such as tryptophan and tyrosine, which are supposed to revitalize your brain function. You lose serotonin level in the brain, and that's why A lot of people who are depressed have low serotonin level as a result of losing tryptophan. And also water is vital for tryptophan to go across the blood-brain barrier. When in dehydration, its competitors go across the blood-brain barrier. Having a heavy head and not a headache, that's a sign of dehydration. Cravings, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, dehydration cravings. You need to increase water intake, and you can kick off any habit. Then,
as I mentioned before, when we discovered the idea of caffeine being something that stunts your memory, for instance, I immediately quit it because we have our consistent volume of water that we need to have for our body size, meaning our weight. That helped us kick off of that. And it's the same thing for the party mode. If you're in party mode, and I've seen a doctor, she was giving a liver detox pill to a patient, and he was stuck drinking, I think, a pint of alcohol a day, of whiskey, I believe it was. And normally you would take 2 of these pills a day to help get rid of sugar out of your body, to help process toxins out of your cells. But with this patient that had this alcoholic need, or something would happen really negative if he didn't just drink. It was keeping him in this bad state. So she had him take 2 of those pills every 4 hours. So it was like 2, 4, 6, 8 a day. And within a week, he was off of that alcohol. So it just shows you. And of course, he obviously motivated him to drink water at the same time with the sea salt. That helped him alleviate the need for that alcohol because of what it was causing when he didn't have it, to then actually eventually get off of it. It was the actual salt water and those detox pills that made the difference.
we have the water drought management programs of the body: asthma, allergies, hypertension, old age diabetes, and autoimmune disease. These are all signs that the body is in crisis, drought and resource management. One of the areas where drought management hits us in our society is asthma. It affects 17 million people. 15 million children suffer from asthma because lungs are where you lose water. Lung tissue can become very dried up when you take rush wind into the lungs, and rush wind plus all the water vapor that can leave out of the lungs. And unless there is water coming from the base to rehydrate the lung tissue, which is very delicate, and these air sacs are very thin membranes, could immediately become dried up and brittle, very much like washings that you put on the line in order to dry them up in the wind. The lung tissue can get dried up. So the body cannot allow the lung tissue to be damaged because you are not drinking enough water. In fact, you should drink some water right now.
No problem.
That water is no good in the bottle. It should be inside you. So the lung tissue shuts down. Histamine is the regulator. It shuts the bronchioles down in children because the bronchioles are very delicate and they haven't developed the cartilage structure yet to be firm. They tighten much more quickly, and that's why 15 million children suffer from asthma. And every year, many thousands of these people die because of the ruthless action of histamine, that it does not understand that this action will kill the person. It's been trying to tell that person for some time that you are dehydrated. That's why initially there is a cough in asthma, not being able to breathe properly, and then you continue to run, eat, and without hydrating the body, and eventually you precipitate an asthma attack. Whereas if with the initial cough of asthma, people begin to drink water, that cough will go and asthma attack will be aborted. In fact, as soon as there is shortness of breath with asthma, a glass or 2 of water straight away and a tiny pinch of salt on the tongue will abort an asthma attack much better than any of these inhalers. Hypertension.
Now, think about what he just said there. That's incredible information right there about asthma. 15 million children. That's 2001, 23 years ago already. I imagine that number is quite a bit more. And we're simply talking about water and salt. I mean, it can't get any simpler than this. Um, wow. Just wow. All right, let's continue.
66% of the water loss is from inside the cells, 26% is from
Oh, I love this. Water loss in chronic dehydration. As he just said, 66% is lost from water held in the cells. 26% is from the water volume outside the cells, as he's saying now.
outside of the cells, and only 8% is from the vascular system. But the vascular system tightens up, it closes its capillaries, and that's why we develop a resistance effect in hypertension. But that 66% water loss is the damaging factor. In hypertension, there
Remember, 66% was inside the cells and 26% I think was outside. That's huge. And then the 8% in the capillary system, which is your blood, which means your blood pressure goes up. And we're talking about what's causing that is dehydration, lack of water and salt.
is reverse osmosis program going on, and that's what hypertension is all about. When the resistance increases, more force has to be brought to bear in order to force the water into the cells. And this drought management program and reverse osmosis is what the body is engaged in. We need to facilitate it by giving it more water and giving it more salt to expand the ocean of water outside of the cells so that this reverse osmosis program can take place much more easily in the meantime until we build up enough water that it can go through the cell by process of diffusion. Pancreas is another water distribution organ. It produces watery bicarbonate solution and injects it into the first part of the duodenum in order to neutralize the acid that comes out of the stomach. Pancreas also produces insulin that opens the gates, and sugar can move into the cells and as a result carry the other amino acids and water. This is an embarrassing situation when the body is short of water. So the mechanism that brings water to the pancreas in order to manufacture a watery bicarbonate solution more and more will shut down the insulin producing mechanism. In other words, prostaglandin E, which is the main subordinate water regulator to histamine, gets engaged nonstop in bringing more circulation to the pancreas, will shut down insulin production. So old age diabetes or type 2 diabetes is a condition of dehydration of the body. Once we begin to increase water intake and salt intake, we can reverse that. We can cure diabetes, type 2 diabetes.
Boom. Boom. He's just said it right there. I mean, that's huge. That is so simple. And it's the last place anybody looks is how much water am I drinking? How much salt am I eating? Or how much salt do I have in my water? It is such a simple solution. I tell you.
And type 1 diabetes, which is the mechanism that goes beyond it, becomes an autoimmune disease, as I will explain. Insulin-producing cells are destroyed. This condition, too, will benefit by increased water intake. The need for insulin will decrease drastically, and we prevent the secondary damage of dehydration, such as vascular damage and retinopathies and things like that. So these things will disappear. They will not occur because they are secondary damage produced by dehydration. Autoimmune diseases are insulin-dependent diabetes, just I explained, neurological disorders such as multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, lupus, muscular dystrophy, chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's disease, a whole lot of other conditions are produced as a result of a cycle that begins to establish in an area. The damage of dehydration occurs when cortisone begins to secrete a lot of interleukin-1 and depresses interleukin-2 production, which are two elements that the white cells produce in circulation in order to regulate their subordinate actions. Interleukin-2 stimulates immune system and interferon production, which are the defense mechanisms against bacteria and cancer and a whole lot of other things. In dehydration, to the point that we have to rely on cortisone activity, this element becomes destroyed or suppressed. Interleukin-1 is responsible for mobilization of elements from the body tissues themselves. This is a slide that I need to explain to you. Vasopressin, that I showed you earlier, is a cortisone release factor. It's a very strong cortisone release factor. It's a modulating cortisone release factor. When dehydration occurs in the body and vasopressin becomes more and more active, vasopressin produces cortisone release factor, and cortisone release factor stimulates interleukin-1 production. And this becomes a vicious circle. More and more occurs. At a certain level, a substance called interleukin-6 and another one, tumor necrosis factor, are secreted. These are the elements that take cells out of the system, they break them down, they fragment the interior of the cells, and the nucleus is broken down into segments that are refloated into the system and picked up by other tissues as primary raw materials that have already been manufactured in one or another capacity. It's like when a car is broken down, you take the carburetor of one car and put it in another car. These elements that are broken from the DNA are being used in other capacities. Now, interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor stimulate proteases in the body, and this is a part of the remanufacturing process. But if it gets stuck on the job with dehydration, it continues to the point of producing DNA damage and RNA damage and fragmenting more and more cells. At a certain level of fragmentation, the segments of the DNA that are produced or RNA that are produced have unfortunately been labeled as viruses, slow viruses, such as HIV, such as Coxsackie virus in chronic fatigue. In AIDS, when they cultured the cells that are producing AIDS, they gave the cells interleukin-6 extensively and harvested the virus. So they were fragmenting the DNA. That's what interleukin-6 does. It does it actually in insulin, breaking down the beta cells. Interleukin-6 breaks down the beta cells and produces the type 1 diabetes. Now, in HIV commercialization, they don't say that they produce the virus with interleukin-6. But in the culture medium, when they gave these cells one of the essential amino acids that I showed you that become deficient, they gave these culture cells cysteine. These cells didn't produce any more virus. So HIV virus is produced when the cell is deficient of an element, such as cysteine and zinc. Now, they have converted this half science into a money-making and people-killing process we call AIDS research. We take this exactly the same problem to Africa, and we say a whole continent of Africa suffers from AIDS, not realizing that drought in Africa, food shortage in Africa, is the primary cause of the problem, because AIDS is a metabolic disorder. It's not a viral disease. I've said that a long time ago. I've said it in scientific language. I've explained this process in scientific language. And the section is in my book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water. It is on my website, watercure.com, so that the world will know AIDS is a fraud. Position on AIDS is a fraud. The pharmaceutical industry is perpetrating fraud against society. And scientists are allowing it because they don't think. They buy whatever pharmaceutical industry says, hook, line, and sinker. Now, these slow viruses occur as a result of resource deficiencies. If we correct the metabolic problem, initially dehydration, subsequently the minerals that are deficient, and eventually the amino acids that are the building blocks of cell activity, then we can correct these disease conditions. The emergency calls of the body are early morning sickness of pregnancy, dyspeptic pain, migraine, headaches, angina, rheumatoid joint pain, back pain, intermittent leg pain, colitis pain, and fibromyalgic pain. Pain occurs in the body when the body becomes acid. If you've got a urine that is light yellow, urine should be actually colorless, almost colorless, but up to light. Yellow is acceptable, but when it becomes orange, then your body is getting acid. You need a pH of 7.3 to 7.1 in the blood and 7.4 inside the cells. When you alter this by dehydration, not drinking enough water to wash the acid out of the body, and the interior of the cells become acidic, you don't have enough sodium to take the acidity out of the cell, then you build up the acid, which damages the DNA. So this is a primary problem. But before this occurs, acid converts prekallikrein to kinin inside the cells. Kinin is a pain producer. When the body becomes acid, you produce more kinins in the cells. Nerve endings in the environment where you have high acidity register this chemical environmental change with the brain, and the brain registers it with our conscious mind in form of pain, meaning pain is a sign of high acidity when there hasn't been enough water in circulation to wash the toxic waste away. That's why pain is a limiting factor. It's telling us, don't create more acid. Go and drink water. Let it circulate. Let it wash the toxic waste out of the environment. And then once the pain subsides, then it means that your body is okay, you can use it.
Okay, again, he's describing what it takes to relieve the pain. The histamines are a communication system that are reminding you that you need water. Your phlegm, your cough, the pain inside of the cells he's describing right now, that means you need more water. There is no other way around it. And that's the body's way of crying out for what would it be relieved. It would be relieved if it had more water. And that's something we're definitely not taught. It is a crazy idea to think how simple it really is.
This is what pain means, high acidity in the body. This is the alkaline level. When the body becomes more...
This is what pain is, high acid in the body. Very important point. This is a very interesting piece here. Let's listen to this piece.
More acid, the interior of the cells become acid, and some of these may be nerve endings, and they register this with the brain in form of pain. And the brain translates the information for the conscious mind in form of pain. There are two components to pain. One is the pain that can be dealt with locally. When you take one of these painkillers, you prevent prostaglandin and kinin formation, which are the pain-producing elements that are subordinate to histamine. But there is also a central nervous system pain that directly signals pain, and these painkillers cannot get at the central nervous system pain. That's what happened to the guy that I treated after 10 hours of pain with water when none of these pain medications had worked on him. He was suffering from his central nervous system mechanism of pain production. That's why a lot of these people who are on painkillers gradually become less sensitive to the medication, and that's why the doctor has to change and change and change, but never work. And there are 110 million Americans who suffer from pain of one kind and another, and they don't realize that they've been dehydrated all this time.
How simple.
Killers cut the connection between prostaglandin and kinin and platelet activating factor, and this is a water regulator, but it also regulates completion of cell maturity.
And he mentioned that this is what painkillers do. I was saying something there.
So dehydration plus painkillers makes the body susceptible to cancer cell formations, producing immature cells. Long-term use of painkillers is dangerous. Angina pain, even though the heart circulates all the blood, nonetheless, the heart muscle itself could become dehydrated to the point of producing pain. But the mechanism is a little more complicated than that. When we eat and we don't drink enough water, gastrointestinal tract deals with the situation, borrows water from here and there to the best of its ability, and produces a concentrated form of digestive juices that enter the blood, digestive products that enter the blood and go to the liver, and the liver pumps it eventually through the portal circulation to the right side of the heart, and the heart pumps it into the lung tissue. And the lung tissue, because of its nature, will absorb a little more water that's not there, and makes the blood even more concentrated. But the lung tissue in the process is now beginning to sense dehydration and is producing constrictive chemicals. These constrictive chemicals, if they spill over into the circulation and go to the left side of the heart, they will have exactly the same impact on the vascular system of the heart and produce a spasm of the coronary artery. And this, in my opinion, is the cause of pain. That is the cause of anginal pain. But also, this concentrated blood will begin to draw a lot of water out of the membrane cells. And because of its nature of rushing and pumping action and the abrasive action of concentrated blood and acidic blood that's damaging the tissue, circulation in the coronary arteries becomes hazardous to the membrane because it produces tiny abrasions and tears. And unless something covers up these abrasions and tears, the blood will find a lip in one of these tears and peel the membrane off and throw it as an embolus. So the design of the body is such that cholesterol is designed to come and cover up that abrasion straight away and smoothen over it. It makes it waterproof so that no more water will be lost to the blood. And this low-density cholesterol that does this is actually saving your life. There is no such thing as bad cholesterol.
Another miraculous effort of cholesterol. Just wow.
The body does not make bad cholesterol or bad elements. That's hazardous to its own survival. The medical community doesn't understand this and buys into the slogan of bad cholesterol and the pharmaceutical industry's fraudulent use of society as cash cows for its products is pushing the use of cholesterol-lowering medications. They fail to explain to the society that we measure the level of cholesterol in the body in the blood that we take out of the veins of the body. And nowhere in the history of medicine is there a record of cholesterol ever having blocked the veins of the body. So if this bad material was going to spill over and stick to the walls and block the system, it should do so more readily in the veins, because the vein flow is a float mechanism. It flows upwards. It's not pumped. And in this situation, the cholesterol would be able to stick to the wall more readily, but it doesn't. So that is not the function of cholesterol. Cholesterol is saving our lives by being the grease gauze, the adhesive bandage that sticks to the tears and wears and tears of the arterial system that are produced by concentrated acidic blood that rushes through these elements. So beware, cholesterol-lowering medications are dangerous. They are not helping you. They're in fact causing a lot of liver damage. A lot of people are now suffering from liver problems as a result of buying into the idea that cholesterol-lowering medications are essential for you. Joints, another one. Cartilage retains a lot of salt. It needs a lot of salt in order to keep water. Water is the lubricant in the joint. Normally, water comes through the bone marrow, but when there is dehydration, the bone marrow takes priority, doesn't allow the water to diffuse through the bone marrow into the cartilage area, and wear and tear by using the joint that's dehydrated will produce the osteoarthritic level of damage in the joint. So water and salt are the better medications for arthritic problems. Bone marrow into the cartilage area, and wear and tear by using the joint that's dehydrated will produce the osteoarthritic level of damage in the joint. So water and salt are the better medications for arthritic problems, because salt is vital for cartilage. Cartilage and the discs of the back, spinal column, retain a lot of salt in their structure and maintain a lot of water, and that's why these elements are not only the lubricants, but they are the shock-absorbing elements. Now, complications.
Okay, so do you know anybody with bad back? Do you know anybody with bad knees, bad hips? You know anybody with bone problems in any kind of way, or arthritis or anything like that? It's always coming down to a system of a symptom of dehydration that's causing these issues. As he just mentions, there's shock absorbers within the discs of your back and the joints of your knees, your elbows, your legs, your hips. All of these things need water and salt. They don't prefer it; they need it to be properly structured. And when they're constantly deprived of it, then they suffer, and the portions of them rub together because they're missing those shock absorbing elements, which is in the form of the minerals and the calcium, like he described earlier. There's so many pieces of information in this one short section. It describes a lot of ailments. And how do you get somebody who's past their midpoint of life, who's got back problems or joint problems, how do you get them to drink more water? How do you convince them that water and salt, of all things, is good for them? It's not an easy task. So the best thing you can do if you're watching this is get the habit going for yourself and prove this is possible by example. When you live it yourself, others will notice it. They'll see the difference in your skin. They'll see the difference in your complexion and the way your body is reacting to life. That it's something positive there. And usually people who see something positive, they want to learn from it. Usually the forward-thinking people will do that. People who don't think forward will not. They will never see it. So that's okay. That's not what they're here to see. That's neither here nor there. So it's just take from the information and use it for yourself first. That's the main point. Okay, here we go.
Of dehydration, raised cholesterol that I explained, heart failure that I tried to explain, chronic fatigue that I did try to explain, cancers, multiple sclerosis, osteoarthritis, and so on and so on. Cholesterol, I explained, becomes the adhesive material that sticks the cell together. If cholesterol wasn't there, this cell would die very quickly. It'll disintegrate. Cholesterol has other functions. It converts to, under the influence of sunlight, converts to vitamin D. Vitamin D goes through the cell membrane on its receptor. Its tail sticks out. Calcium sticks to the tail of the vitamin D, and all the other elements stick to the tail of the calcium, and the whole thing is taken in as a train, as a food train. So cholesterol is a vital element.
Now look at that. Look how important cholesterol is to the health of the cell. I mean, sunlight, cholesterol creates vitamin D from that, and as they're showing right here in the vitamin D train, all of this nutrition goes into the cell because of cholesterol. And if you want to take a drug to lower that, you might want to ask yourself why you would be doing that.
In the human body, as a mechanism of converting sunlight to within the food metabolism of the body. So sunlight is absolutely essential. So people who've got high cholesterol, it means that they're actually low in energy level. They need to go out in the sunlight and get a little more of their cholesterol converted to vitamin D and enhance their food chain activity. By the way, cholesterol is also the element from which all the hormones are made. Cholesterol is the element that the body uses as an insulating membrane on all its nervous tissue. So cholesterol has got a monumental role in the human body. There is absolutely no such thing as bad cholesterol. The idiots who use it should be hanged. Cancer. As I explained, I presented at a cancer conference.
The idiots who use it should be hanged is a hilarious joke. Anybody saying that cholesterol is bad has been not properly educated, and that's the point of this video from him and his books, is to give you the knowledge to free you of that old paradigm, that said cholesterol was bad. That was a lot of marketing that I grew up with. That salt was bad, cholesterol is bad. It's still out there, and unless you take charge of yourself and your viewpoint, that no one else is going to do it for you.
It's the explanation that cancer in the body is produced by dehydration. And water and salt are better medications for cancer than anything you can imagine.
Boom.
Cancer cells are primitive cells, genetically selfish. In other words, they're unsophisticated cells. Through our cultural development, cells of the body have learned to perform a role within a capacity of function. As we become dehydrated, we reduce that integration of activity, and gradually we force cells to become immature and primitive. They live in anaerobic environment and low oxygen needs. If oxygen reaches cancer cells, it'll kill them. And that's why they've been trying to treat cancer with hyperbaric oxygen, things like that. But the best way is to increase water intake. It will take oxygen to the cancer cells.
Increase water intake, obviously with salt, and it'll take oxygen to the cancer cells. Does it get any simpler? I mean, come on.
Cells in culture reveal stem cell properties. In other words, if they don't have to go and take fetal tissue, they can take cancer tissue and produce stem cells. In cell cultures, if they don't give the right deficiencies to the cancer cell, it'll immediately become a stem cell. In order to produce cancer, we need 4 things that must not be there, or it's a multi-system dysfunction. first and foremost, DNA damage, as I explained. Then we have got a repair mechanism that is deficient. Then we've got receptor downregulation because the cancer cell becomes primitive, and then the immune system suppression. DNA damage is produced by excess acidity in the cell. You've seen these monuments, stone monuments, when pigeons sat on them and the pigeon droppings defaced the monuments. The acid ate into the stone. Now, our cells are less hard than the stone. They get more readily damaged by the hydrogen ion that is produced in the acid environment inside the cell. So there is DNA damage as a result of dehydration. The tripod lysine, tryptophan, lysine is the enzyme that recognizes DNA damage and transcription indiscretions and cells that are not normally integrated into the system, and cuts and splices and repairs the DNA damage, this enzyme system. Now, in dehydration, we lose tryptophan because it's used as an antioxidant. We lose a whole lot of amino acids that in dehydration are sacrificed. So the DNA repair mechanism becomes damaged as a result of dehydration because the elements that should be there are used in another capacity. Then another problem is autonomy of the cell. Histamine produces a lot of calcium release, as I explained, that calcium is being used as an energy source. And individual calciums stimulate protease activity in the cell membranes. And protease activity converts protein kinase C, which is a normal, well-functioning and integrated normal cell, and uses protein kinase C for its activities. Proteases destroy this and convert it into a protein kinase M, which is a much smaller protease that manufactures protein. And this, unfortunately, is an autonomous protein kinase. It doesn't obey commands from outside. Stop producing more of this. The cell doesn't recognize its boundaries. It doesn't have any inhibitory actions on it. It constantly begins to replicate. And this is unfortunately as a result of excess calcium activity in the cells. Receptor downregulation, you know, I showed you earlier that all cells have got receptors in their fluid environment. They need that receptor in order to communicate. In dehydration and lack of resources, these receptors are not manufactured anymore. So the cells don't become integrated anymore. They are less integrated. And as a result of that, the cell becomes autonomous. There is no controlling mechanism to stop it from excess activity. Then we've got the interleukin-1 activity, which continues to break down tissues. Interleukin-2 activity is suppressed, which is vital as a mechanism of defense. Interferon production is suppressed as a result of dehydration. So we have three of the elements that can cause cancer that are produced in dehydration. Andrew Bowman is a 42-year-old gentleman. This is a very historic case history. He is probably the first one that will show you how dehydration in the fourth dimension of time, dehydration that initially revealed itself in childhood and by the age of 40 produced a whole host of damage in the guy and eventually caused his problem. At the age of 8, he had allergies. By the age of 23, he had asthma. 14, he developed diabetes, and he had neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy at the age of 26. His immune system was suppressed and had many bouts of infectious mononucleosis or glandular fever. Eventually developed a lump under his skin on the left side. Biopsy in 1995 showed lymphoma. Gallium test revealed lymphoma all over his body. He was glowing with lymphoma tissue. He searched high and low, eventually came to Mr. Bob Butts, who lives in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, who is one of the guys who spent many hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money in spreading my information to the 600,000 community of Northeast Pennsylvania. He advised Andrew Bowman to go on the water cure. In 95, he started the water cure. In March of 96, he went for a gallium test. There was no cancer tissue left anywhere.
November to March. November, he went on the water cure, was free of any cancer detection by March. 5 months maximum, water and salt.
And he is now 6 years cancer-free. He's one of the guys who's going around and teaching a whole lot of people about dehydration
This
and
stuff.
lymphoma. Breast tissue is the water fountain for the newborn. It has to be primed all the time. One of the things that keeps it primed is prolactin. As I explained, prolactin is a stress hormone. It's not in itself a stress hormone, but in stress it becomes more and more produced. It has been shown that prolactin activity can produce mammary tumor in mice. Now, prolactin is activated, exacerbated in dehydration, stress, and aspartame, artificial sweetener, can cause prolactin increase, and that is why we develop cancer. In more and more of cancer in our society, not knowing that there is a connection between breast cancer that's rising in the society and consumption of diet sodas. This is Dr. Lorraine Day. I've got her permission to show this slide.
Oh, this lady is wonderful. Her website is still up. Unfortunately, she just passed away, and she's a miracle. And he barely scratches the surface. He's going to name her website, so I definitely, it says it right there on the screen, drday.com. I definitely suggest you go read it about what she discovered with water. She has a lot of other stuff on there, but this whole story specifically is very, very good.
You can go to her website, drday.com, and see the same thing. And she developed cancer of the breast, did a lumpectomy, but cancer was all over her body. She's a doctor of medicine herself. She was 15 years the head of orthopedic department of San Francisco General Hospital. She's a magnificent doctor, a surgeon. But once she developed cancer, she realized that she's absolutely no hope with her orthodox or the method that she used to treat cancer herself, because she had seen the result of chemotherapy, X-radiation, surgery, and whatever, and cancer was never cured that way. So she decided to go into alternative medicine. She started taking a lot of vegetables and changing her lifestyle, gave up medicine. In fact, she was forced because she became so sick that she was bedridden. All this time she was taking alternative routes. Then someone sent her a copy of my book, and she read it, and all of a sudden the whole thing dawned on her why she had developed cancer. She started increasing her water intake to about 16 to 20 glasses of water a day, plus the diet. Within 3 or 4 or 5 days, she felt much better, and within 3 weeks, she was able to get out of bed and walk, and she's never looked back. Her cancer has disappeared. This is
Wow.
an older picture of hers. She's now 7 or 8 years cancer-free. And this is her statement. Dr. Batman-Gillich's discovery regarding water was critical to my recovery. I could not have recovered without it. Wells Jackson, Air Force officer in Germany, in 1999, develops routine test, shows 4.6 PSA. Biopsy confirms that he has cancer of the prostate. Comes to Walter Reed in January of 2000. Biopsy PSA is by then 5.7. Walter Reed again tests him, and they confirm tumor. He does not buy into the idea of chemotherapy and X-radiation or seeding or surgery, and opts for hydration in place of the January. His PSA came down to about 3.5 within 3 months. Then he went back onto his old lifestyle of drinking beer because he was in Germany, drinking a lot of coffee because he's got 3 coffee plantations, and PSA went up. I told him that he can't do that. He needs to make his body alkaline instead of acid. So he listened to me, fortunately, and within a month his PSA came down again to 3.5, and he's been 3.5 when he was again interviewed or tested at Walter Reed, and he was totally cancer-free. He was told to go home and come back in a year's time without anything. So water and salt are better medications for cancer treatment than anything you can imagine. Why do we develop?
Boom. Water and salt are better treatments to cancer than anything else combined. Wow.
Cancer of prostate? Because prostate gland contains a lot of acid phosphatase, which is an enzyme system that becomes stimulated in an acidic environment and produces more protein. So the prostate enlarges in acidic environment and eventually produces cancer in acidic environment. If people have got cancer of prostate, they need to make their body alkaline. Any form of cancer, you need to make your body alkaline. I will explain how to do that. Water is the best mechanism of making your body alkaline. It washes the acid out of the body. You manufacture urine, and urine will take a lot of acid out of it. In order to bring the acid, extract the acid out of the cells, you need salt. I'm showing this salt shaker, but I don't really mean that you should take table salt. You need unrefined salt that contains all the other elements in it. There are 82 elements in sea salt. The manufacturing companies wash these elements and sell them separately at high prices and give you the sodium chloride, which doesn't serve the same capacity as all the other elements that should be in salt. But nonetheless, even in this capacity, this table salt should be taken unless you've got the other kind of salt. You need the other minerals, and you can get those other minerals from fruits and vegetables. We need half the body weight in ounces of water. In other words, a 100-pound person needs 50 ounces of water. And for every 10 glasses of water, we need at least half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of salt is 3 grams of salt, 3 to 4 grams, depending on the size of teaspoon. And the better formula is a 1/4 teaspoon per quart of water.
1/4 teaspoon per quart of water. Now, I presently do double that. I've been doing double that for a long time. But that is the minimum, and that tastes very, very good. When you try it, it's delicious, especially when you start with RO water.
In order to maintain the balance between the intracellular and extracellular fluid volume in the body. If we are active, we need more water, we need more salt, because we perspire and respire and we get rid of salt. In hot climates, we need more water and salt. If we eat heavy food, we need more water and less salt, because heavy food probably has, if you're eating meat and things like that, has a lot of salt in it. So please listen up. The best solution in life for maintenance of health is in adjustment of water and salt intake to the optimum level that your body requires. Anytime you feel tired, drink a glass of water, not anything else, because water is a better pick-me-up than anything you can imagine. And water will open up your brain function. Your brain will function infinitely better under proper hydration than in dehydration. 3 elements will bring you health: adequate water intake and salt intake. You need daily exercise. Daily exercise is vital, because your muscle movement regulates the physiology of your brain function. Very simply put, when you move your muscles, not only you recirculate the blood from your lower extremities, because your legs, the muscles of your legs are your secondary hearts. Your heart pumps the blood in your arterial system. Your calf muscles will pump the blood in your venous system. So you need to walk in order to bring circulation back to the heart, and also let the lymph flow. That's how the whole mechanism takes place. And exercise has another function. When you use your muscles, you burn up nuisance amino acids, which are the branch-chain amino acids, valine, leucine, isoleucine. These are competitors to tryptophan and tyrosine for passage across the blood-brain barrier. When you take these branch-chain amino acids out of circulation by burning them in the muscle, you allow the tryptophan to go across the blood-brain barrier more readily and easily and manufacture serotonin, tryptamine, melatonin, and indolamine, which are the amino acids. And your tyrosine will go across the blood-brain barrier and manufacture your adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine, which are vital elements against depression and so on. Water does another thing. Water by itself actually produces up to 90 minutes stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, which stimulates adrenaline, noradrenaline activity, and fat-burning enzymes in the body are hormone sensitive. In other words, adrenaline, noradrenaline stimulate the fat-burning enzymes in the body, and you begin to metabolize fat as a source of energy. Exercise does that. After 1 hour of walking, your fat-burning enzymes become measurable. Hormone-sensitive lipase becomes measurable in your blood circulation up to 12 hours. So if you walk twice a day, you will have 24 hours activity of the hormone-sensitive lipase, which breaks down the fat in preference to anything else. So your muscle is conserved, your fat is burnt, and that's how the body begins to energize itself. But in dehydration, you willy-nilly use up both muscle tissue as fodder for energy, as well as the fat. So walking is a very important element. And also, when you walk, you hydrate the spinal discs, and your back pain will disappear, your body becomes upright, and also breathing is essential part of walking, because in breathing you make your body alkaline. Every time you pass carbon dioxide out of your body, you make your body alkaline. You also need, in preference to anything else, you need a lot of vegetables, because vegetables contain a lot of magnesium. Vegetables make your body alkaline. It is a rule that you need 20% of your energy from an acid-making system, such as a protein, meat, or poultry, or if you're meat eaters, and 80% from vegetables and fruits. And these guys, sodas, alcohol, coffee, and tea, are no-nos for health. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he ends that very, very well. The concept of water, salt, food, and exercise at the end there. He explains it similarly elsewhere, but he makes it a little more clear. So water, half your body weight in ounces per day. If you weigh 100 pounds, that's 50 ounces. If you weigh 200 pounds, that's 100 ounces or 3 quarts. If you weigh 250 pounds, that's 1 full gallon. So you want to do that minimum amount of water. So water, salt, food, exercise. And what that means is half your body weight in water. To that water, as he described there, 1/4 teaspoon per quart in that water you're drinking. So if you're drinking 96 ounces, that's 3 quarts. You want to have 1/4 in each quart, or 3/4 of a teaspoon for that whole body of water. Water, salt, food, exercise. Food, non-processed. Doesn't have to be organic, just be non-processed food. Processed food would be grains, pastas, any of that fast food variety is all processed food. Um, Ramen noodles are processed foods. Any whole food is okay when it comes to the food category. You just want to be doing whole food. The only processing to that food you want to do is slicing. That's the only processing. It's a one ingredient food. Water, half your body weight. Salt, quarter teaspoon per quart in that water. Food, non-processed. Organic, if you're into that and you can afford to do that, that's great. That's even better. And then the last one's exercise. And in another part of his work, he describes this to be 45 minutes. So 45-minute walk is walking your dog. If you walk your dog 20 minutes, normally walk them twice the distance, or maybe walk them twice a day. But getting those heart pumps moving from the calves in your body is very, very important to create that circulation you need, not just from the heart, but from your legs. So that's really a breakdown in a couple hours of his video. There's a little bit more Q&A at the end there, but I'm going to clip it off because this has gone long enough. And I'm also going to cut this up as best I can to put it out in little pieces and portions. So that's for us nerds right there. This was a deep dive into Dr. Batman Galedge's work, and it's just a glancing blow. His books contain so much. I've read them all. I have them all. They're all good books. The ABCs. The You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. Just get that one. That one is at your bookseller. So get that book. Start right there. It's such a good read, and you'll see right away, like Dr. Day did. And her website, drday.com, is a great website to visit and see her story. Again, she just passed recently, unfortunately, but she's 80-something. I forget what her age was, but she did really good considering she had this cancer in her 50s. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next video.